So hello everyone, this is Prathamesh Mane from DP Sir classes, and today we are going to start a new chapter of Standard 10, that is gravitation. So let's get started. So the name of the chapter is gravitation. Also, what is gravitation? Gravitation is nothing but the force which pulls everything towards the earth, the force which attracts everything towards the earth. It is because of gravitation we are able to live on this planet, we are able to walk on this planet, we are able to do all the things we are doing today. It is all because of gravity. It is all because of gravitation. Here is an example of how gravitation works. You can see the ball is getting attracted towards the surface of this floor, and as a result it comes down. This is a small clip how gravitation works. Let's move on. What is gravitational force? Gravitational force is nothing but a force which acts between two bodies on the earth or on two bodies present in the universe. What is gravitational force? It is a force which is acting between two bodies which are present either on the earth or in the universe. For example, imagine we have these two bodies. The force between these two bodies is nothing but the gravitational force. Force which is keeping both these bodies in contact is nothing but gravitational force. Here is a pictorial representation of gravitational force. This is the earth, this is the moon. Gravitational force is nothing but the force which acts between the moon and the earth. So we start with studying about Sir Isaac Newton. So Sir Isaac Newton stated the laws of motion. He also invented gravity. Everyone knows that Sir Isaac Newton invented gravity. He discovered gravity. It was a series of events. What happened was an apple fell on the head of Sir Isaac Newton, and he started to think about that how does everything comes down to the earth? Why doesn't it fall? Why doesn't it fly off? Why doesn't the apple fly away, but instead fall on the earth? After studying for a lot of time, he understood and discovered gravity, which is today we call as gravitation. Also, Sir Isaac Newton stated three laws of motion, which we will be studying right now. This is the picture of Sir Isaac Newton. Everyone must be knowing about him. And you must have studied about him in the earlier classes as well. Even we have studied about the laws of motion in the earlier classes as well. But before studying any concept, there needs to be some revision. So we are going to revise the laws of motion today. Also, we will be covering circular motion and the centripetal force. So let's see the laws of motion. Newton stated three laws of motion. So we'll learn them step by step. This is the first law of motion. So what does the first law of motion state? The first law of motion states that an object tends to stay at rest, or an object in motion tends to stay in motion with the same speed and in the same direction unless and until it is acted upon by an unbalanced force. What does the first law of motion state? It states that an object at rest tends to stay at rest. What does it mean? It means that if an object is at rest, that is basically if you are sitting, until and unless someone doesn't come and push you, or you yourself do not get up, that is, you do not apply an external force, the object remains at that place. If suppose you keep an eraser on the table, now unless and until you do not pick up that eraser, or you push the eraser, or you move the table, that is, you do not apply any external force, the object tends to stay there, the eraser tends to stay there, it does not move. But if an object is in motion, like a car is in motion, a car is moving on a highway, unless and until you do not apply brakes, will the car stop? No, the car does not stop, because the car is in motion. Unless and until you do not give any external force, there is no change in the direction of motion or in the motion. Unless and until any unbalanced force is acted upon the motion, there is no change in the motion, there is no change in the speed of the motion, there is no change in the direction of the motion. Got it? See, in this example, the football which is present here, the football, until and unless the boy does not come and kick the ball remains there. The ball remains in rest. But when the boy comes and kicks the ball, it goes in motion. It tends to go in motion. But imagine if the boy does not kick the ball. If the boy does not kick the ball, then the object, that is the football, stays in motion. Okay, so we'll move on to the next law of motion. That is the second law of motion. Now, what does the second law of motion state? The second law of motion states that rate of change of momentum of an object is proportional to the applied unbalanced force in the direction of the force. Confused, right? I know these theoretical statements might be very confusing, but let's get it in this way. Second law of motion states that change of rate of momentum of an object. Change of rate of momentum of an object is nothing but the change of rate of its motion. Change of rate of its motion is nothing but acceleration. So acceleration of an object is proportional to the applied unbalanced force in the direction of force. What does this mean? Proportional to the applied unbalanced force in the direction of force. Let's try to understand this. Imagine, we'll try with this example. Now, in this example, the object is very small and the person is very large. So it becomes very easy for the person to push the object, that is to give motion to the object. But in the second case, you can see the object is very big, but the person is very small. So moving the object, that is giving motion to the object, is very difficult. So what do we understand by this? What we understand is rate of change of motion, that is the acceleration of the motion, that is change in motion, depends on the force applied. If you apply more force, more change in motion we'll see, and if you apply lesser force, there will be less change in motion. Take for example, when you are playing catch or when you throw a ball in the sky. While throwing the ball in the sky, if you throw it with less force, or if you just bounce it up, it won't go very high. But if you apply the maximum force you can, then the ball may reach the sky. So the change of momentum or the change in motion depends on the amount of force you are applying. Got it? So this was the second law of motion. Then we'll move on to the third law of motion. Now, what is the third law of motion? Third law of motion states that when one object exerts force on another object, the second object instantaneously exerts a force back on the first. Again, a theoretically critical one. This one also seems to be difficult, right? We'll try to understand this. What does the third law of motion state? Third law of motion states that one object exerts force on the other object, then the second object also at the same moment tries to exert force on the first one. What does this mean? Here I have two objects. If the first object exerts force on the second one, then the second object also exerts force on the first one. Again, it seems to be a bit tricky, so we'll try to modify the definition. So we can modify the definition as every action has equal and opposite reaction. Simple way, you slap your friend, the friend will slap you back. This is the third law of motion. Every action has equal and opposite reaction. Take the example of a trampoline. You bounce on the trampoline bounces you back. That is the third law of motion. See, in this example, the basketball player throws the ball towards the basket, but instead of going into the basket, the ball hits the basket and instead returns back. This is nothing but the third law of motion. See, the ball goes, it hits the basket. This is the first object. The ball is the first object. The basket is the second object. Ball exerts force on the basket, and the basket in turn exerts force on the ball and returns the ball to this basketball player. So this is the third law of motion. Now we have revised all the concepts of standard 9, which we are going to require for this centripetal force and the circular motion. Now we'll start with circular motion and centripetal force. So now what is circular motion? Circular motion is nothing but motion in the shape of a circle. That is motion which goes round and round and round. Circular motion is being seen all around yourself. You have seen a lot of circular motion. The fan rotating on your ceiling right now is nothing but circular motion. This is the small representation of circular motion. The object, the blue color object here, is nothing but going around in circular motion. You can see it is moving along the circumference of the circle. This is nothing but circular motion. We have one example here. You all must be knowing. This is known as the giant wheel or the Ferris wheel. This is also a good example of the circular motion. We have a lot of examples for circular motion. The wheels of any vehicle or the ceiling fan in your room right now, the merry-go-round, the Ferris wheel, all of these are circular motion. Now, what is the need to study circular motion? Because we have to learn one more concept related to that, which will be the final concept for the day, and that is nothing but centripetal force. What is centripetal force? Centripetal force is the force which acts on the particle along the radius and is directed towards the center. We'll try to understand this in a simpler way. Imagine this is a circular object and we have circular motion happening here. Circular motion occurs here, so the direction of the velocity is represented here. Now, what do we do? The circular motion is happening in this manner, right? So what is centripetal force? Centripetal force is the force which keeps the particle which is in motion. It tries to attract the particle towards the center. Like if the particle is present at this position, the centripetal force will try to pull it towards the center. Now, why is centripetal force necessary? Imagine this is a circle and we have circular motion going around. Now, when the circular motion takes place, velocity of the object is tangential to the circle. When it is tangential, the object tends to leave the circle. Object tends to leave the circular motion and tries to go in linear motion. This is when centripetal force comes into play, and centripetal force pulls the object towards the center, as a result of which the object does not go in a straight line but instead continues to move in the circular motion or in the circular path. Now, if you say that if there is no circular motion in the circular, if there is no centripetal force in the circular motion, then what? Then nothing, my friends. Then the object won't move in circular motion, but the object would simply fly off in a tangential way out in a linear motion. So centripetal force is very necessary for circular motion. Without centripetal force, circular motion cannot take place. The SI unit of centripetal force is Newton. This is important for you because this can be asked in a fill in MCQs or fill in the blanks for 1 or 2 marks. This definition is also very important for you. This definition can be asked for 1 or 2 marks. This is a totally new concept for you guys because you haven't studied this. You have studied uniform circular motion. You have also studied the laws of motion, which we just studied now. You have studied it in your previous standards as well, but the centripetal force hasn't been studied in your previous standards. So we'll continue now. So is it understood that centripetal force is force which acts towards the center, along the radius towards the center? This is centripetal force. Centripetal force is the force which keeps the object in circular motion. Yeah. So then we continue. Now we move on to something very interesting, which is Kepler's law of motion. What are Kepler's laws of motion? Kepler, Johannes Kepler, he was a scientist and he studied the planetary motion and he came to three conclusions which we are going to study. We'll be just doing the introduction of who Johannes Kepler was. We'll be studying the Kepler's laws in the next lecture because doing a lot of things together might be very burdensome for you. Also, doing a lot of scientific concepts together in one lecture, you might not get everything. So going step by step is very important in physics. In science, it is very important to go step by step. You should not rush to do things. Now, everyone must be thinking that we should complete Kepler's laws in this lecture itself. But that is not the thing. You need to go step by step. Especially in this physics department of science, you need to be very methodological. You need to go step by step. Learning 10 concepts at a day is not good. At this point of time, you need to go step by step. You need to learn one concept or one concept. So today we will be only doing the introduction of Kepler, who Johannes Kepler was, and what were his laws of motion. We will be just stating the laws of motion. We'll be learning them in the next lecture. Okay. Yeah. So Johannes Kepler, he was the one who discovered the planetary laws of motion. This is Johannes Kepler. This is a simple representation of the planetary motion of the Earth around the Sun. Now, guys, what is planetary motion? Planetary motion is nothing but the motion of a planet. Motion of a planet around a star is nothing but planetary motion. All of you must have studied in geography that the orbit of Earth is elliptical and Earth revolves around the Sun. I think these two concepts must have been taught to you in the geography. So every one of us knows that the Earth revolves around the Sun and the orbit of the Earth is elliptical. These two things are very important to be learned in the Kepler's laws of motion. We'll be continuing the Kepler's laws of motion in the next lecture. Till then, keep studying, keep revising concepts. Thank you.